went up for sentencing on Friday. He's been convicted. He will go to prison. But for how long? And that's a big question. Now, he could have gotten just probation. That means just outside. You're not in jail for the next 3 years. You can't do any bad things. Or he could have gotten up to 5 years in prison. Did he get jail time?
Yes.
Did. In fact, he got 3 years, 36 months in federal prison. Federal prison doesn't have parole either. It's not the same as state prison. So he will spend really almost all of that 3 years in jail itself. Now, he doesn't have to go right away. He doesn't have to report to prison until March 1st of next year, which is kind of weird. Like, he will just live his normal life for the next 3 months. And then one day he'll be like, well, it's time to go to prison. And then have to drive himself to prison for 3 years, which is weird when you think about it, but I guess that's the thing. It's happening. Woo! The problem is that Trump needs a new lawyer now. He's got this guy here.
Oh my
Rudy
God!
Giuliani.
It's Kyle's uncle Jim.
Oh my God. Okay. Now Rudy, famously has been defending the president for several months now, but he sent out this tweet right here, in which he said the president had recently gone to this G20 summit and then was coming back. The point of the tweet we're looking at, though, is that he did not, after the G20, he put a period, and he did not put a space before he started his next sentence. So Twitter, recognizes that as a website link, g-20.in. Now, that's not a real website. It really just goes to nowhere. No one's using that website. But once he sent this link, someone paid $5 to buy this website to make it their own. And so now, if you were to click on that link, it just takes you to this website instead, and that's all it is. It just says Donald Trump's a traitor. There are no links. That's all the entire website is. Now, this happened last week. Everyone had a laugh, except for Rudy Giuliani, who was not amused by this. And then he later sent this tweet back, in which he says, Twitter has allowed someone to invade his text, to hack into his Twitter account, and change this around. And as you all know, that's not how Twitter works. No, he made the website link. This has nothing to do with Twitter. It's not Twitter's fault. And that's what happens. He's like 80 years old. Old people don't understand the internet. We all know this. That's fine. He can get a pass except for one problem. His job title for the President of the United States is Cybersecurity Advisor to the President, which is awkward, right? Okay, so big story for today is about the shutdown, ladies and gentlemen. Government shutdown may happen in the next week or two. This is a pretty big deal. We're going to talk about how they happen, why they happen. But the idea is that we may really shut down at the very end of December, and always when it happens around this time of year. Government shut down in America for one reason, which is always over the federal budget. Every year we need a new budget, which is passed by the House, passed by Congress or Senate, and then signed by the President. If those three things don't happen by December 31st, we go into shutdown mode automatically. And every year, Democrats and Republicans argue and bicker until the end, and they just kind of get over it and compromise. But that may not be the case this time around. As you saw yesterday, Trump seems pretty serious about this actual shutdown happening. Now, in the past, it's always about blaming whoever for the shutdown itself. Obama had several near shutdowns in which he said it was all the Republicans' fault, and the Republicans said it was all Obama's fault, and back and forth we go, over and over again, common stuff. But very rarely do we find a president who says, I would love to shut down the government, like Donald Trump said yesterday. So that could be a whole new ballgame. And Trump's shutdown is for one issue and one issue only, which is what?
The wall.
The wall. Getting the border wall built, he says that is it. Either we get it and we move forward, or no wall, no government, we shut down immediately. So we have about a week and a half for the federal government to figure this out, if they're really going to build the wall or not. He's been a big fan of this wall for 2 years. It's one of his basic campaign promises. The reason he got elected was to build this wall. But there are some logistical problems to building it that we should probably talk about. So, obviously it's going to be expensive. They're looking at about $13, $14 billion to actually build the wall. But the problem with this wall is what? What's the problem with building it at the border between the U.S. and Mexico? So the main problem is that lots of people own that land, not just one person, not just the government. Also 4,000 people that bought Cards Against Humanity stuff own part of the land too. So there's a lot involved here, but there's other problems too. That border, a lot of it is built on sand. And sand you can't build walls on, it just sinks into the ground. Even if you build the wall, you have to maintain it year after year from wind damage and sand damage. And eventually, you're going to need to patrol with actual people too. Why do you need people on the wall watching?
Jump ladders.
Because otherwise, yeah, your 30-foot wall isn't going to work if an illegal immigrant just brings a 31-foot ladder to the wall. They just climb over it, and that's the end of it. You spent $13 billion on outsmarted by Home Depot. So it's not going to work. You really have to have people on the wall all the time to monitor, and that's expensive all the time every year. Now, this is the actual border as it is right now. The biggest problem may be that it is one of the largest borders between two countries in the entire world. It's 1,600 miles. There's a lot of wall to build. The current wall is the red sections that you see right there. You'll note there's not a whole lot of them. Like, that's all the wall that we have so far. And Donald Trump wants to build the blue dashed part. So that's this part here, and some piece there, some there. You'll notice that even if the whole wall gets built, then we still have a bunch of big sections that just have no wall whatsoever. This is maybe not the biggest problem of all, which is that of all the illegals that come into this country, 1/3 of all of them come in by plane, ladies and gentlemen. So that's not going to stop any of them either. You have a lot of real issues to deal with in terms of like how the wall is actually going to work. Which group does not like the wall? Now, there's Democrats primarily who don't like the idea. They think it's inefficient and it's not going to work very well. But there are a lot of Republicans that don't like the wall idea too, because Trump's promise was specific. Not only is he going to build the wall, I'm going to build the wall and
Pay for it himself, right?
Make Mexico
make
pay.
Mexico pay for it. And if
yeah,
he's asking for $5 billion of our tax money, it doesn't sound like Mexico's paying for this wall to me. So a lot of Republicans are seeing this as a broken promise too. This is a really tricky idea that he's asking for. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I guess we're going to find out. On top of this, the actual federal deficit, that's how much money we lose every year, you can tell is going up a lot over the last couple of years. We've had a lot of tax cuts, but we're spending the same amount of money. This is going up and up. And apparently there's a meeting last week where Trump was told, like, this is going to be a problem soon. Eventually, when the deficit is too large, we cannot come back from it. There are real economic problems that happen. And Donald Trump's response, which is confirmed by at least 2 anonymous sources, was that he said, yeah, but I won't be here. So essentially, it won't be his problem. He won't be president anymore, which is, of course, troublesome. So all of this is kind of wrapped up in this one big idea of whether the wall is going to get built or not. But it's worth noting that if the government shutdown happens, it essentially happens immediately. Like on January 1st, a lot of government workers just don't keep working anymore. That's the end. You stay home until you figure this all out. And it shuts down what is called all non-essential services. Anything not essential to running our government stops immediately. That means things like school. Public school may not start back up on January 7th if we haven't figured out a solution by then. And I am, of course, totally kidding about that. I'm joking. Wasn't that a great moment right there? You really saw it? You might not come back? Oh, maybe. That could very well be. So, essential government services basically means fire, police, and public schools. Those things always run all the time. So sorry about that. You're coming.
Well, what about private schools?
Private schools aren't paid by the government, so they have to keep working.
So we have to still come back?
Oh, yeah. We're not going anywhere. But this has not happened. We have not had a shutdown in the American government since what year?
1990.
This has not happened
1973.
since 3 years ago. Actually, it was pretty recently. We had the last one. But before that one, we have not had a shutdown. So, okay, recently too. All right, so actually these shutdowns happen a lot in America. They're normally not a big deal. We figure them out in the first couple of weeks and we get through it. But I don't know. This one does feel different to me because Donald Trump is very clear, as we saw yesterday, that he wants this wall and will accept nothing else. The Democrats, I don't think, are going to give that to him. So I guess we'll find out. Now, it's worth noting when this happens, these are workers who basically went on furlough. That means you stop getting paid. You must take vacation now until this is all over. And some of them had to go 6 weeks without a job, without a salary. That's not easy for thousands of workers that will be affected by this. And it also means closing things down, like the Supreme Court, no one mowed their lawn for like 6 weeks because they couldn't afford to pay the maintenance people. So some guy, just a random American, just took his mower and an American flag and just mowed the Supreme Court lawn on his own. But we really can't like depend on people like that just fulfilling roles of government. It also means we'll close things down like the war memorials. Those don't stay open. Those aren't non-essential services. And this is a big problem because this almost happened one year on what is maybe the worst day to not be able to go to a memorial. Which would be what day?
Veterans.
Close. Memorial Day, right? And apparently a ton of World War II vets wanted to go to the memorial on Memorial Day and couldn't. And there was talk they would actually storm over the barricades and go in there anyway. At which point you would have a conflict between the police and all of these old veteran soldiers, which is not a good look. Like, you do not want the police pushing Grandpa over in his walker to stop him from going to memorials. Or you got the guy in the wheelchair running over the police guy's foot. Like it's not a good look for the government. Is what I'm saying. Probably not what we want to see happen. All right. All right, last story, we're going a little lighter today, which is about this is a British research vessel built last year for $14 million. Britain, after building this to monitor global warming and the melting ice caps, decided to let the people of Britain name the ship themselves. And
Name a vessel.
hold on, let me talk about it. So what it came down to was an online internet poll with essentially three top contenders. The most votes won. Third place was the Pillar of Autumn, which is actually a pretty cool name. Second went to Henry Worsley, a famous British scientist, and by far the number one contender was
Sir Buckethead.
Bodie McBoatface. Which left Britain in kind of a weird position because they had just spent this huge amount of money and they had to name this thing Bodie McBoatface to get laughed at by every other country on earth. Britain said no. They decided not to do it and then went with the second place option instead, which made a lot of people really upset. People who said this was the death of democracy, the final decline of Western civilization. Eventually, Royal Caribbean stepped in and actually said, don't worry, we're going to honor it. Royal Caribbean said they have promised to name one of their cruise ships Bodie McBoatface after all. That really may happen. Now, Britain, feeling bad about the whole thing, finally did name it after one of their research submarines. And Bodie, the research submarine, did set sail just a few weeks ago to the North Pole to chart ice melt. So that is a real thing that happened. Good luck, Bodie. On your journey of research. No, it's not. But anyway, so then a few weeks ago, also in England, they have this what's called this floating bridge number 6, which takes cars between Wales and the mainland of England. And they decided one more time to let people vote on Facebook to decide the name of this ship, saying very clearly you cannot name it Bodie McBoatface. It was in the rules. It turns out they named it instead Floaty McFloatface. So I feel like at this point Britain just needs to learn. It's not going to work. We'll end on one last one, which is this happened a few years ago in an elementary school in Louisiana, which is called Robert E. Lee Elementary. They wanted to change the name for what reason? Robert E. Lee was the most famous Confederate general, essentially fought to keep slavery in the Union. Not a good look. And they decided to change the name of elementary school. Again, they let the people of the community decide, and the options they came up with, Drew Brees was the famous quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, makes sense. Bruce Lee has nothing to do with Louisiana, but again, cool name for a school. Third place was John Cena Elementary School, which as an elementary school for a kid would be pretty awesome. Fourth place was the Adolf Hitler School for Friendship and Tolerance, which perhaps not great. And the final option was, as you probably can imagine, Schoolie McSchoolface. Okay, we got to get started, ladies and gentlemen.